It's Sunday evening, it's 7 o'clock, and we are going to do this live that we were supposed to do on Friday. Found out what it was. It was Sky Broadband had something wrong throughout the country, and I use Sky Broadband. So there we go. That's where the problems were then. But hopefully, we've got plenty of you here tonight. It's the end of the week. Grab yourself some coffee, whatever you need to do, and then we'll do a little bit of a talk on what we decided to talk about, which is, do we believe that Islam should be taught in Christian schools? And do we believe that we should be sending our children on mosque visits and having them pray to Allah? Now, I've just seen one of my Muslim friends that's just jumped in. Abu, nice to see you, mate. Thanks for joining us. And may God's peace be with you as well, my friend. I thought you might be here. Now, Abu, I talk to Abu quite a lot, and he's my guy of reason. He's the one that brings me down a level and stops me getting too far-fetched with it all. However, I am passionate about this subject. It's relevant to me and my child. And I put a post out a few days ago now, and it had 6.2 million views. I will show you what I put in a second. But first of all, I'm going to bring my guest in for this evening, who's going to be discussing this with me. So we've got Rich. Rich, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Mark. Thank you so much for agreeing to have me on.
It's absolutely fine, my friend. You look like you're nice and tandy. You've been abroad.
Whenever I can. I'm in the southeast of England. When the sun is out, I'm topping up my vitamin D. It takes me a lot more than it does you, I expect.
Do you know what? I'm a bit of a sun worshipper, but I just haven't been out there. But while it's been hot, I've just not been out there. I did one day and I burnt myself, so no good. But hopefully we'll get a nice summer. And Julia, how are you, my friend?
Sunburnt.
Nice to see you again. What you been up to?
Oh, you Thank you, you too. Oh yeah, spent too long in the sun yesterday.
Now, I just want to share this with you. Look, I don't know if people could see this. These are my spectacles. Can you see the broken at the bottom there? I've got a little puppy. Got a little puppy called Millie. Now these are my second pair of glasses. Right. The first pair of glasses, completely. She's ate all of it. She's literally ate everything. She's left me with the shell. So I found this second pair, and she's got two of them again, and she's managed to do a hole. Now I would have to use these at some point, but I thought I'd better say it because I'm going to look right div in a minute when I start going like, just bear with me, you know. So that's what that is. What I want to do, we've got plenty of people here now, so we'll start our discussion. I want to play you a clip. I don't know, Julie, if you've seen this clip or not. I don't know if anybody watches this. I'll play it now, and I will play it again later. And then I just want to get reactions, if that's okay. Should be loading. Let me just play that again in case you didn't see it. Oh, I love my connection when you're trying to do two things at once. Sorry, guys. I just want people to see it from the start. That's all. Right. So that's the clip I put up, and I basically put a message along with it and saying that I've actually rang my school a couple of weeks ago, and because this term we were given a curriculum, and it basically came out in a parent mail what they were going to be doing this term, and all over this term, every Monday afternoon, and people say to me, no, it's not every Monday afternoon. I'm telling you now, it's every Monday afternoon. They are teaching them about Islam, okay? And as part of this term, they've got a visit to a mosque. Okay, so I've rang the head teacher, and I said, look, I don't want my son partaking in anything to do with Islam. I don't want him, you know, we've sent him to a Christian school. We don't want him learning Islam, otherwise we would send him to that school. I'm quite upset. We had a bit of a back and forward, but we ended up agreeing that my boy would be taken out of the class whenever Islam was being taught to read his Bible. But the sad thing is he was in a room on his own. So I've been really, what do we do? What do we do? Because every Monday afternoon they take him out of the class, they're putting him on his own so he can read his Bible. And the mosque visit as well. Now, my school has actually cancelled the mosque visit. So I'm pretty sure that not just me, I think a few other parents have rang and said, we don't really like that. So they sent a communication out basically saying that it's not going ahead at the moment. They may put it back in somewhere else. So before I come to you, Julia, for your reaction to that, I'm going to go through my glasses with holes in. I'm just going to read a few of your comments out that we've got so far. So obviously Abu's in here. So Abu said it's just really ridiculous and unacceptable. So this is from a Muslim, so that's great. Abu, I love the fact that Abu will talk out about things that he deems wrong, but he will always bring receipts with him as well. I've got a lot of respect for Abu. So he's saying that's wrong. Margaret Williams. Margaret says, the answer to that is no, Christians, our love and forgiveness. Islam is control, you obey. You obey there. God, Lucifer, my Lord God is Jesus Christ, Jehovah. You shouldn't even be talking about this. No, no, no. Okay, Margaret, that's fine. I believe we should be talking about this. I think just from the reaction of the post, I mean, this post got 6.2 million views. I've got loads and loads of DMs about parents that are homeschooling their children. That seems to be the way that everybody's going now. And I'll share this with you now. Next week, end of next week, I've got another head-to-head meeting with my teacher. And the likelihood is, well, it's certain that I'm going to be withdrawing my boy from school, and we're going to be homeschooling him for the remainder of this year and for next year. And then we will make a decision on what we do with him when he goes into secondary school. That's how passionate we feel about this. Now, obviously, you get a lot of abuse because of you. The first thing that people say is, you're not a Christian. I doubt you've ever been to church. I hope you enjoyed my live from my church this morning. It was a lovely service. I am a Christian, and I'm a Christian that's got a heart full of good, and I want to do right by everybody that follows me, everybody that I come in connection with. I've always got their best interests at heart, or my best interests at heart, or everybody's best interests at heart. So stop me talking a little bit. Julia, I want to get your reaction first to that clip for one, and what's your initial thought on it?
Where's the clip from? Do you know? Or is it just
right? What I can tell you, I'm not going to tell you which. I'm not going to tell you which school it is, because that's wrong. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you which mosque it is, because that's wrong too.
It's from it. Yeah,
I don't want to cause any issues. I mean, there's a lot of people watch this, but what I can tell you is they are British kids, and it's in the UK.
Yeah, well, right, that's fair enough. Okay, and where the school have sent a letter out to say there's going to be a visit to a mosque, is there any planned visit to a church, a Christian church?
Well, this is argument, Julia. It seems like we as Christians and our children have to tolerate, interact, go to these visits to mosque and church, but I've never seen anything the other way round. I've never seen a Muslim child go to a church and pray to our God, to pray to Jesus. It just would never happen. Never happened. So the answer to that, I think, is no. Somebody might tell us different, but
yeah, because if you're going to take, you can't just single out one religion to cut. Well, although it has to prioritize, because I've just read some notes on Grok there, and although I found the answer that I got quite woke, I have to say, all about Islamophobia and blah blah blah, I was thinking, but there's no such thing as Islamophobia. We've got to be able to criticize anything or talk about anything without being stopped from doing that. Otherwise, we're not a democracy. You know, we're run by tyrants. If that's the case, that's what we are. But I thought if there's a planned visit to a church and the Muslim children are going, fine. But I can guarantee you not one single Muslim child will go to that church from certain Muslim sects, which we now have in this country, like the Amiyada. I cannot say the word. Ahmadiyya sect, which is very strict about segregating boys from girls, and they actually have their own institutions, and there's actually 183 of those in this country, believe it or not, and quite a lot of those 183 schools that are just being taught really strict Islam, a lot of them aren't monitored and they're not questioned, they're not looked at, you know. And you might wonder, how do I know all this? Because I'm going to plug my book. I've got to plug my book, haven't I? I've just written a book called The Crescent Over Britain, How Islam's Rise Reshapes a Nation by J.T. Welford. And it's out now on Amazon. And it's absolutely, every time I go on Twitter, sorry, X, I will call it Twitter, and I put something on, where's your evidence for that? Where's your evidence for this? And I think, for crying out loud, I wouldn't have said it if I didn't know that it was true for fact, you know. So I've literally filled this book full of references and facts and statistics and evidence to what I'm saying. And there's 217 references for you to check when you go throughout the book. Feel free. They're all referenced, everything I've said. And I know this about the schools. They're not monitored properly. So what are they actually saying? That's another, I know that's going off on a tangent, but you would not find one single one of those kids going to any church that is Christian that isn't all about Allah. Do you know what I mean? And the Prophet Muhammad.
I believe that's the case, Julie. I really do. I honestly don't believe that's what gets me so worked up about it, is because why should we as parents, as British, have to tolerate this? You know, they're trying to pass a blasphemy law. They're trying to get that through so that we can never, ever say anything about this.
We've got to be able to criticize any religion, because there's not one single religion in the world that hasn't had a history of violence and aggression towards another religion. And in my opinion, religion is responsible for so many wars, so many fights, so many deaths, all about religion. But within Islam, you've got the Shia and the Sunni. So what sort of Islam are they actually teaching the children? And I know that some of the parents, because I've just read it and Grok gave me the evidence, complain when they're not taught really strict Islam, and they question why they're not segregated, and they take them out of those schools on a lot of the time and put them in these 183 schools that exist that nobody knows what they're teaching. They're going unmonitored, and I've got the evidence in my book, and it's the chapter's called what did I call it? The chalk line, the divide in education between all of the different sects. Hang on, where's the chapter?
You find
there.
The chapter, Julia. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to read the messages there. I'm just going to read some messages out while you get that. So
right, okay.
Abu's put, no children should be engaging in rituals over other people's faiths, but rather they should be learning about all faiths solely academically. Okay, fair comment, Abu. Let's just go down a few. Abu again, he says, I believe ultimately it's the parents that should have the final say. This is the case, Abu, right? So we do have a final. We are quite within our rights to have our children removed from certain lessons if we want to, but they don't openly tell you that. This curriculum came out this term, and it was just popped in there. It was just popped in there with no opt-out form or anything like that. I literally had to ring the school up, speak to the mistress, and say what's going on. So I think for me, and this you may call me I'll get bombarded for this, but for me it is no coincidence at all that we have just had a new education minister in place who is a Muslim, and then all of a sudden our kids are going to mosques, our kids are learning about Islam. Now one of my issues is this. is the age that this is taught. Now, if you want to teach Islam as part of a curriculum, why is that not in a secondary school environment? I feel that in a primary school environment, they're too young. They're too young to be exposed to the things that they're being exposed to.
Yeah.
So this being one.
And what are
next
they saying to them? Sorry.
See, I don't know, Julia, because obviously my boy's taken out of it.
Yeah,
you know,
But what are they saying? We don't know.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. If anybody does know, if anybody's got a child that's currently learning Islam in school, can you give us an idea of what they're learning, what's being taught in the class? Has your child gone to a mosque, or vice versa? You know, I can only talk of my experience, but the age thing is a big thing for me, because I think at a young age, my son's 10, just turned 10. They're very exposed to an awful lot of stuff that I don't really believe they should be exposed to. And as I was just about to say, that it's sex education next term, and they're going to be told that they can be an apple if they want to, you know, and that bothers me. They're going to be told that dad can have a baby, and they're going to be told that this is good and that's good. And ultimately, I'm a Christian and we don't believe that's good at all. So this is why I've made the decision. Sorry, Julie, you can carry on now with your
I found the chapter. It's chapter 9, the chalk line, and there's 27 chapters, and it's so hard to remember them all. Education's divide in a changing Britain, and it examines the education split. 17% of our pupils in school are actually Muslim pupils, and 20% of those Muslim pupils need English support. They need a translator. Slowing down urban classes as well. Okay, there's that. And believe it or not, there's a 70% GCSE pass in London compared to an 85% GCSE pass in Cumbria. Why is that? Because there's not many Muslim schools. Sorry, there's not many Muslim pupils. I think. What is it? Because it's been slowed down as well, with 183 faith schools and 200 shadow ones on top of that. Okay, it contrasts our Victorian unity, and I say that because I've written about what it was like in the past when other religions and other cultures came and blended with us. I've kind of set the book out like that, so I cover as much as I can. And I do think we need to spend millions, if not billions, on getting this sorted to bridge these gaps, not widen them. All we're doing, I feel, God knows what the school kids feel like, especially primary school kids. I was in London the other week, and I was seeing posters about worship Allah, and I thought everything was, I couldn't believe my eyes. I felt like Islam was being rammed down my throat, and I'm a 52-year-old adult, and I can deal with that. I think, sorry.
So, do you know what, Julie? We should be able to say you're not happy about that. You know, you should be able to say.
But now,
I don't want to see this. I don't want to see that. But we've been told we can't. You know, we're racist. We're racist.
Exactly.
If we say that. We're Islamophobic,
and I get annoyed about that, because so there's no white Muslims. Is that correct? I don't think so. There's a lot of ginger ones. but you get where I'm coming from when I say that? Because it's not, Islam isn't a race. It's an ideology. In actual fact, having written the book and done the research that I did, I'm actually inclined to think some Islam, not like some of it's lovely, and Muslims, I'm not getting at all Muslims, I must stress that. I feel like you have to caveat things with that sentence. A, I'm not racist, and B, I've got no problem with Muslims. But the amount of Islamism that is growing, it's more like a cult. The more stricter Islam. I've just recently watched A Handmaid's Tale, right? And I thought, this is what it must be like for some Muslim women, the way that they get treated, just like baby machines. And that's starting to come into this country now with this Amiyada sect. I've written about it, but I can't say the word. But there's so many different sects. Are they teaching children in Islam about female genital mutilation? Are they teaching them the hadiths where Muhammad walks along with a 6-year-old and gets married? Is that what they're teaching them? Because in my opinion, from what I've seen and read, not just Islamism, but the trans movement, you've just said you're worried about the sex education. this is heavily influenced the education system. How are the teachers going to teach them about sex education? I think the trans movement and Islamists come at the same time, and it's both against women in a lot of ways. And that's what prompted me to write this book, because I was so worried. And I think if we don't start talking about it, even though they're going to say you're racist, you're this, you're that, I am not racist. I've got no problem saying that. Anybody that knows me would know that I'm not racist, but I do. And I have no problem admitting this. I don't think Islam's a religion. I think it's a cult. So most of it. And is that what they're teaching these kids? They're normalizing. I'm sorry to say this, but it feels like we're now normalizing the unacceptable, and next paedophilia will be normalized. That's where I am at. My thoughts.
Yeah. So anybody that's watching this, we've got plenty of people watching now. We're up to nearly 500 people. So anybody that's watching that knows what's going on in these classrooms, that their childs are being taught and etc. If you could just pop a comment in, there's a link at the top as well. You can always come on and I can put you on screen and we can chat it through. I'm just going to read a couple of messages, then I'm going to come to you, Rich. So Dr. Bruce Masters says he welcomes a referendum on this and on the monarchy for that matter. Now Abu will say to you, if you ever connect with Abu, you might well have a decent conversation, because I have a lot of interaction with Abu, and I'll say something and then he'll send me something via DM, which takes me down a level. But he said all my children have visited the church, mosque, synagogue and temple as part of RE in school, and he demanded that they do not take part in any rituals. So what we saw in that clip earlier was a ritual. They had the kids bowing down to Allah, and that really got me. And it got to a lot of people, to be honest.
Yeah.
Neil Price has sent a message in saying it doesn't work with the new modern world. Iran has closed over 50,000 churches because the people are not integrated. Britain, is there any chance to replace? It's I think it's a big subject that we need to talk about, but people do not talk about it because exactly what Julia says, you get called a racist, Islamophobic, etc., etc., etc. We should be allowed to have a say in what our children are being taught, what they are being, and as adults as well. I don't want to walk it out. We're in Great Britain. It's a Christian country. I welcome Muslims. I'm quite hardline. Don't get me wrong. I'm a homelander. I'm a nationalist. I want complete and then start again. But also, I've got Abu that I talk to. You know, but the problem that I have a lot of the time is that moderate Muslims do not challenge radical Muslims enough. They don't speak out against radical Muslims enough. Yeah. Abu does,
because they're frightened.
Exactly.
Because they're frightened. That's why. Look at Roger Meir. What the work he's done for trying to highlight the grooming gangs and the amount of the politicians and councillors that are involved in the cover-up. He's had death threats. They've actually attempted on his life. He's been arrested, early morning raids numerous times. That's what happens when they speak out, and that's one. Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt.
That's all right. Rich, let's come to you. So first of all, I want to get your thoughts on what we've already been talking about, and I know you're more into the homeschooling side of things, which is what I want to talk to you about as well. And I'm sure people will be listening that may get something from you from there as well, because like I said, the likelihood, it's 100% that next week I'm going to be withdrawing my child from school. So your thoughts initially, Rich, and then if you can tell me where to go from there, really.
Sure. Well, Mark, just thank you so much. And hi, Julia. Thank you for having me on. Just a little bit about me before I say what I say. So I wasn't born in the UK. I'm Pakistani. My father was a Shia Muslim. My mom was a Sunni Muslim. My wife is Christian. My brother is an author on Islamic politics. His wife is Jewish. I am a child protection social worker. My 20-year-old and my 17-year-old have never been to school, ever. And I pretty much agree with everything that both of you have said. But I want to take it in a much larger context, you know, like zoom out a little bit. This government doesn't care about Muslims. What this government cares about, I think, is divide and rule. You know, Islam is a philosophy. Some people think it's the true and the right philosophy, but then some people think that about Judaism or Hinduism or Christianity. In the end, God will tell us. God will let us know, come the day of judgment, whether we live good lives or not. But the idea of, let's just say, we're going to make Islamophobia illegal, so you can't criticize that philosophy, but you can criticize Christianity and Judaism and Hinduism. Now, all that does is just shakes up ants. It's just stirring the pot, having us have goes at each other versus us uniting and recognizing what the ruling class in Britain are doing to the British people, just like what the British ruling class did in India, in South Africa, in Australia, in Kenya. They exported schools to India, not because they wanted an educated populace, but because they wanted to use the schools. They used the schools as a weapon of imperial and class control, saying to the children, the Indian children there, we are your lords and masters. You will listen to us, not your parents, and you will follow our gods, not your gods. Now, in doing so, what the British ruling class did, is separated those Indian children from their heritage, their culture, their traditions, their legacy, detach them from the hold that the parents had on them, which makes them easier to control. And in some of the British colonies, they did that to the extent where they would remove children, like they did with Aboriginal children and with Native American children, remove them and put them in boarding schools where they were beaten if they spoke their traditional language, if they followed their traditional rituals, and then they had Christianity forced upon them. Now, what I see is happening here is pretty much the same thing, where the British ruling class are using Islam as a cultural weapon against British people in order to divide and rule, in order to separate the English, and I suppose the Welsh and the Scots and the Irish, from their traditions, their legacy, their history, their culture, their language. And it ties in with the whole trans agenda and the promotion of pedophilia in schools and the sexualization of children. And on my channel, I've done a lot of coverage about what's happening in Ireland. They're way ahead, where they have books in public libraries for 12-year-olds talking about fisting. 12-year-olds don't need to know about that. What they need to know about is how to be safe. That's what they need to know. Keep themselves safe. But what that does is, by sexualizing children, by promoting the idea that boys can be girls and girls can be boys just depending upon how you feel, and then having Islam being foisted upon Christian children and non-Muslim children, people lose a sense of themselves. They don't know who they are anymore. If I'm not sure whether I'm a boy or a girl, and I come from a Christian household and a Christian heritage, but I got to go and do these rituals, well, then I become easier to rule over. Plus what it creates. And I'm sure there are people here watching this, and I'm not saying that this is true of you, Mark, or of you, Julia, but there are people here watching this who are going to get angry and righteous and pissed off with Islam. They'll take it out on Muslims. And then what we have is the ruling class picking us off, divide and rule. So that's the way that I see it. And just to be clear, there is one thing to teach children in school about other faiths. This is what Buddhists do. This is what Hindus do. This is what Muslims do. This is what Jews do. That's fine. That goes on. But there's something else where the state is instilling a particular philosophy upon a group of children over and above the consent, without the consent of the parents. You know, Mark, if you wanted your son to be brought up as a Muslim, well, you could take him to um, a, a local mosque where he can learn all that. It's not the job of the state to teach your Christian son Islamic rituals.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
as a Muslim, that's my position on it.
Okay, let me just read a few messages out. Abu's been quite busy. He said we also have to research what's behind the transgender, where first transgender clinic and who was behind it. Patriot designer, hello Sam, nice to meet you again, mate. I find it's being forced ever since the new Hamid portal. Hamid Patel took over of Ofsted, which is what I said earlier. I remember learning the history of Christianity in school, but we never forced to go and pray in a church for a school trip. Absolute madness. Now, people say to me, I read through the messages on the post which caused us to be doing this, and a lot of people say, oh, they've been teaching Islam for decades. I was never taught Islam in school. I never went to a mosque to visit a mosque, and lots of people that I know certainly haven't done that. So why is it happening now? So I'm not quite on board with it. It's been happening for ages, and people say there's no way it's happening every Monday afternoon. I'm telling you now, every Monday afternoon, my boy's taken out of his class to read his Bible for an hour or two every Monday afternoon. And he hasn't been to a mosque because it's been taken away from the curriculum, but it might well come in. I don't think it will, because I think enough parents have said not happy with that. So let's move on to what do we do? So I'm going to be making a bit of a drastic decision. It's going to change us completely. But I ultimately think that it's going to be best for my child. The reason being, we notice as parents how our children behave, how they change, how they grow up, how they learn. And I've seen a change. I'm not going to go into it online because it's nobody's business apart from mine and my wife's. But we've been a change. And therefore, it's made our decision to take him away from school, his friends, what he's known since he was 9, and do it at home. We're in a position where we can do that because I'm at home all the time. So I'm going to be teacher. So I'm going to need some help with that, Rich. And I know you said you're going to give me some advice and you're going to tell me what's what. But what I want to know is, what's the legalities, if there are any legalities around that? You know, I'm going to go tear arsing into his school next week and say, I'm taking my boy out and you're not having him anymore. Can that happen? Is the first thing that I want to know. What are the legalities behind you, Rich?
Okay. I assume your child doesn't have a statement of educational needs, in which case it's really, really simple. You send the school an email or a letter, recorded delivery, so you know they got it, and it says, please take my child off the register as of such and such a date. You don't have to give them any notice. You could even not send him in that morning and say, listen, my child is, please take him off the register, no longer on the...
Can that not be done in person?
Yeah, you just need to have a record of it. You can do it in person.
Right.
And personally, I wouldn't give them any reason.
Okay.
You don't have to tell the Education Act it's the parents' duty to educate their children either by regular attendance at school or otherwise. So you're going to do it otherwise, but you don't have to give any reason whatsoever. You don't have to tell the local authority. It's entirely up to you. Now, the law as it is currently really, really gives a lot of power, rightfully so, to parents. There's no curriculum you have to follow. There's no set hours you have to give. There's no exams they have to take. It's really, really up to you how you design it. So it works for Christian home educators if you want to give him a Christian education. It works for Muslims and Jews and Hindus. It works if you want to give them an agnostic or atheist education. If you want to do school at home, you can do that. If you want to do what we did, which personally I think is the best, but then I would think that philosophy, because it's the one we chose, is unschooling. You can do that. And what unschooling is children just play. They play and they play and they play and they play. And as they get older, their play develops commensurate with their age. So when my son was 3 years old, he was playing shop. And how he was playing shop was he'd line up his toys and asked me if I wanted to buy one, you know, for 5 pence or something, right? It's very, very cute. And then when he was 7 or 8 or 9, he was playing Monopoly. And that way he learnt mathematics. He wanted to make sure that when he was getting his rent, because I landed on Mayfair, I was giving him the right amount of money.
Of course.
So that's how he learned number. And then when he was 11, he decided to do a car wash in our street. So my wife sat with him, helped him make flyers. He posted them. He was charging £5. He spent money on buying equipment, you know, the sponges and everything. And then he was paying his sister and his sister's friend 50 pence each.
I used to go around washing cars when I was a kid. Me and my friend used to wash cars.
But it was all play for him.
Exactly. Yeah,
play.
it is. Yeah. Julia, what's your initial thought process around homeschooling? Because the messages that I've read, there seems to be an awful lot of people that are deciding this is the way to go. We've got 700 people watching. I really do want you to get involved. If you're homeschooling your child, or your child hasn't been to school, etc., please just pop a message in, because I'd love to read it out. But Julia, what's your initial thought to the premise of homeschooling?
You're on mute, Julia.
Can't hear you. Get your mic on, Julia.
There you go. Can you hear me?
I've
got two. I'm undecided at this minute in time. Haven't written my book, obviously. I worry that if we're taking our kids out of school, and there's more Muslim kids coming in the country because they're being born here, because there's they do have bigger families. That's quite the norm for Muslim families, to have big families, more kids. We're kind of, oh, well, that's easy. We'll just take his place. You know, he can have that place. Muhammad can have his place. And then we might end up where we're not educating our kids, but all the Muslims are getting educated. It could literally end up like that. In the far future I'm talking about, though, this would have to take a good while. But I put it into Grok earlier on, and it says here, parents in England, Scotland and Northern Ireland can withdraw their children from religious education lessons, including those covering Islam, without giving a reason. So you can literally walk in, off. You don't even have to give a reason, apparently. But in Wales, this right applies only to students over 16. This provision stems from historical conscience clauses dating back to the 19th century, originally to accommodate denominational differences. Now, I didn't know that until I started looking at this. And
no,
I just think, if you're going to take kids to a mosque, take them to a church, take them to a temple, take them, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you can't have our children.
They're not, though.
You can't have our children bowing down to others. It just can't happen.
You're right. It is. It's wrong. It shouldn't be happening. Also, it's compulsory. Sorry, did you want to say something, Crypto?
Yeah, I just want to say, so there is a misunderstanding about schools.
Yeah.
Schools weren't designed to educate.
Indoctrinate.
Never designed to educate. And home-educated children actually outperform school children on every single measure. Social skills, academic skills, literacy, numeracy, self-esteem, happiness, life satisfaction, every single measure. School was designed to train people to work in factories without complaint. It's designed to train them in compliance, obedience, and conformity. Be like everybody else, do as you're told without objection, and don't complain.
Yeah. That's spot on. That is spot on. Exactly what I would think. It says here, in England, religious education is a mandatory subject for all state-funded schools. Fair enough. As per the Education Act in 1996. But it's not part of the national curriculum. Instead, local authorities, through standing advisory councils for religious education, they're called SACREs, S-A-C-R-E, just need to put a D on it, SACREs, decide the syllabus, which must reflect Britain's mainly Christian traditions, while including other principal religions. Now, I don't feel like that is happening. I really don't. I feel like the kids are getting Islam rammed down their throats as much as the adults are, because everywhere you look, there's something promoting. Look at the Prime Minister and the King earlier this year, and I hate calling him the King, but he is, so I have to. Stood at the start of Ramadan. Where were they for Lent? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
absolutely.
Julia, there's lots that's happening that this government is doing that has nothing to do with British or English customs,
Yeah.
laws, and traditions. The king is the defender of the Christian faith. That's his constitutional role.
Yeah.
And he's violating his oath of his
I know.
coronation oath by promoting Islam. And this government doesn't care about Muslims. It has no issues with bombing them in foreign lands abroad.
They just want their votes. That's all.
Well, I think it's the divide and rule. It has us fighting each other versus addressing what they're trying to do to us, which is directing us towards a life where we'll own nothing, eat bugs, and apparently that will make us happy.
Yeah,
Guys,
yeah, that is right as well.
I hope you can hear me because I'm having trouble with my camera. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, let me just read a few of the messages out first. But I want to touch on what you just said there about. My personal opinion is the establishment actually want us to be on the streets. They actually want civil unrest.
Yeah.
They seem to push and push and push for that to happen. And you know what? Pretty soon they're going to get what they want, and I don't think it's going to be too pretty.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry.
The Patriot designer said, maths, English and business studies for your boy, Mark. He will be a millionaire by 18. I hope that's true, Sam. But you've got to remember, I've got to teach him it. So I don't know about that. Plotkin. So best move is to take your children out of public indoctrination. Bless your school. Teach children what you think instead of how to think. H. Hall says, Rich, he agrees with you, or she, sorry. Either one. We need to come together against the establishment, not each other. And Plotkin says, we homeschooled our children since 2021. Not as hard as what you think. And that's the point, you know, everybody's done this through COVID. And the first week or two, everybody was like, what do we do? What do we do? But by the end of it, we were pros at it. Yeah. He says also learn way more and take way less time. We always get compliments on how intelligent our children are, because we taught them how to look at the data and think. Now, that's a good point. You've got one teacher in schools that are teaching 10, 12, 15, whatever it is, and they have to share their time equally between their children. You know? If you're homeschooling your child, you've got full commitment with your child. You've got one-on-one. You're doing one-on-one things, whether that's playing, Richard, whether that's some maths, whether that's whatever it needs to be. They're going to get far more out of that than being in a school environment. The only thing that worries me, and it always has and it still does, is the social side of it with the friends, etc. But I personally think we can arrange play dates, we go and do things, etc. Rich, sorry mate, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Mark, let me come in that because there's people have a major misunderstanding, and here I'm going to bring my knowledge and experience as a social worker. There's a mechanism, a process between parents and children called attachment. And it's usually between the mother and the child, because the mother carries the baby and has got a closer relationship. She grew the baby inside her. You know, dads, we're just witnesses to the process. Attachment is one of the things that makes us mammalian. All mammals, all birds look after their own, apart from the cuckoo that fosters them out, right? School is designed to break that attachment bond. Attachment in humans is about, the whole process is about 7 years, which is why in most schools in the world, apart from former British colonies, children start school around the age 6 or 7, because it's then when they're ready to move away from their bond, from the space of being with the parents. Attachment, healthy attachment, is what gives rise to healthy social relationships. It's in the attachment bond that the child forms him or herself and gets a sense of themselves. And then from that, they can then have healthy relationships with others, which is why home educated children have much better social skills than children that go to school. Now, the other thing that happens in school that messes up relations is bullying. Bullying is harmful for the kid that's bullied. Bullying is harmful for the children that bully because they think that's a way to get on in life. And it's harmful for those that observe because there's always this concern, like, is it going to happen to me now? The kind of bullying that goes on in school day after day after day, where some poor kid is picked on day after day after day after day after day, doesn't happen in home ed communities. It just doesn't happen because what you have in home ed communities is mixed age play. And the oldest child who has nothing to prove passes the message down, don't bully and tease the others.
Yeah.
So then you have this environment of empathy. Plus, there's also no pressure to be like everybody else. No, just be yourself. We don't care. We're all being ourselves too. There's no sort of external pressure to conform like there is in school. There's no pressure to force children to study things that they're not interested in. It's all done inside this background of love and care and concern. And inside relationship, there's no one, Mark, who's going to love your son more than you and your partner. No one.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets to grow up inside that loving embrace. So the social skills, it's a complete fallacy. In the United States, top universities actively recruit home educated children. And we don't say homeschool in Britain so much, it's home educated, right? And why? Because they say they have much better motivation. They're intrinsically motivated to study, and they have much better social skills. You don't develop social skills by putting an 8-year-old in a class of similarly ignorant 8-year-olds, 20, 30 of them, being told what to do by an adult to engage in activities that they have no interest in. That's immersion. That's not socialization.
Yeah.
There's my answer to that one.
Hello, Tim. Tim James has said hi to everybody. Tim James has been through a lot recently, so all the best to you, my friend. I'm thinking about you most days. I wish you only the best. So this seems to be a growing problem based on just one post, really. One post has got so much. If you haven't seen that post, by the way, go and have a look and go read through the comments. There's so many comments in there. I got so many DMs from it. I've got some wonderful messages from it as well. But it is a divisive subject. I've made my decision as head of the house as to how we're going to do, what we're going to do moving forward. Yeah, if you had children my age, what would you be thinking?
There's not a chance in hell there'd be in any school, I can tell you that for a fact. Because I wouldn't want my children indoctrinated. In fact, I have 2 little great nephews. When I say great, I mean in like generations. And one of them's 6 and the other one's 7. And I worry myself sick about what they're being taught in school, about the Islamification of what seems to be everything at the moment. And the stupid king went along with what Keir Starmer. Well, I think Keir Starmer condiment. He's thick, the king. I mean, he must have agreed. Oh yes, that's a marvelous idea. Yes, we'll go and we'll do this on Ramadan night. You know, to hell with the Christian religion. I'm only the head of that church, but hey ho. I am worried about them. I'm not as worried though because they're male, and for some reason there's a push. It's like us women. I will say this: I've only had any rights, for about 100 years in the grand scheme of history. And when you look back how long history's been here, I mean, until 1993, I think women could be raped within marriage. I mean, that's not that long ago. We didn't have a vote. We had to be married to have a vote. I mean, it's all, and now it's like there's a big push to stop women having any rights. I'm not bothered about I am bothered about equal rights. I understand that men are stronger than women, and there's certain jobs men would be better at than women. I just want fairness. It's not much to ask. I don't want to have to fight for my nephews and my niece who's 27, thinking, I mean, how long is it going to be until she's in a burqa? When you look at Lebanon, all the secularization within Lebanon, and what sect of Islam is it that they're teaching them? And I mean,
Julia,
it worries me.
Julia,
Sorry?
it's worse than that. You mix in the trans agenda, you're going to have Muslims in
Yeah.
burqas.
Yeah, I know.
Muslim men in burqas going into women's toilets.
Yeah, and then as soon as the whole of the country is Islamified, because that's what some of the sects are trying to do, and they really are. Those poor kids that were indoctrinated into this trans thing to help all the women lose their rights, they'll be getting kicked off the nearest roof. And I don't want that to happen to. I don't want it to happen to a country that I've worked hard in my life to. I'm a nurse. I'm a psychiatric nurse. I still work, and I work hard because I'm Christian as well. And I'm so nice to as many people as I can be, because I think they might be having a lonely day. But I'm doing that job, and the government are undermining everything I'm going along and doing in a lot of ways, and it gets me miserable, and I don't want to spend sorry.
One thing I will say to you, Julia, is you're a Christian. You're the same as me, and people make the mistake that Christians are just placid people that nod and say yes and help people and love every single person. That's
look at the Crusades.
Times have changed, I'm afraid, and people. That's the first thing people say to me. I'm outspoken on X. People know that.
Yeah.
I have so many battles on here. It's unreal. And then the first thing people say is, "You're not a Christian. You'd probably never been to church, etc., etc." I am a Christian.
When people say that.
Exactly. I am a Christian. And do you know what? I'm a masculine Christian that's prepared to stand up for what's right. I'm prepared to talk out for things that are wrong. I'm prepared to stick my head above the parapet and do what I feel is right.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel, because I want to help the future generations. I don't actually have children of my own, but I'm worried sick about everybody else's kids and the next generation. And we just want our kids to carry on, you know. My Auntie Rita said to me about 4 years ago, "Julia, do you not think we're being ethnically cleansed?" And I spat my tea out. I went, "What? No, I'm telling you now, I'm actually thinking, is that happening now?" It's because every angle you look at, it's been indoctrinated, and it feels like, to me, I'm not saying it is. It feels like we are being ethnically cleansed, and I wonder if it's because of our history.
Julia,
we are.
You are. I think it was 2012. The UN published the UN Replacement Program, and it's a philosophy or an idea. The Cloward Piven strategy. Cloward Piven were two sociology lecturers in the United States, and they looked at, well, how can we move from the sort of social democratic mixed economy societies we have now to state socialism, Stalinism straight away. Well, one way you do that is you destroy all the existing structures. And one of the ways of doing that is, I mean, like what's happening in Ireland, it's tragic what's happening in Ireland.
It's awful.
Now, a homogenous Roman Catholic country has now becoming like 20%, mostly Muslim, recent arrivals. This is in the absence of economic growth. It's not like there's jobs for these people. It's not like their families coming over. You know, we came over as a family. My dad had a job, so he had to be responsible and integrate and look after his wife and children. That's not and the economy was expanding. That's not what's happening now. So they're bringing them over. The economy is not expanding. There's a struggle for resources. The new arrivals are being favored over the indigenous population.
That's what it feels like.
In order to stir the pot and get them fighting. And I think, you know, I'm from Pakistan. I wouldn't want all of a sudden 20% of the population to be people from China and Nigeria and Canada and Europe or wherever, because it destroys culture. But when you destroy culture, people become easier to rule over.
Yeah, exactly.
Fighting each other.
And we're thinking, I think somewhere, a lot, David Icke talks about the spider's cobweb, and the government aren't like in charge really. There's deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
I wonder who is actually in charge, because everything, and I wrote this book. I know it's back to front, and I apologize for that, but I can't use my other camera. But I wrote this book, and because I wanted to learn about Islam, and I wanted to know what was going on, and a lot of it was looking back into history. We as English people and British people have done some bloody rotten things in our time, but it wasn't my time. I didn't do it, and I wouldn't do it.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So it's as
Absolutely.
if they're coming and saying, well, there you go, take that, you can have that from us.
But that's just part of the strategy of divide and rule. Now, who's behind it all? I'm not going to go where David Icke goes, right? Because
Yeah, I wouldn't either, but yeah.
I'm not going to go there, right? People are welcome
Yeah.
to go and explore that. But one of the things I cover on my channel, because I did start off at cryptocurrencies and everything, but then life got very, very interesting in these last few years. So more and more politics. So what in the background, you got to follow the money, but not the money that we see at the surface. In the background, this is my assertion, it's the bloody city of London, the remnants of the British Empire. They are pissed off that they've lost their colony, and they want their power back. They want India back. The conflict between India and Pakistan stirred by MI6. My assertion is wherever there's any mischief in the world, you'll find MI6 causing mayhem as agents of the remnants of the British Empire. Now, that's not you, Julia. That's not you, Mark. That's not me. But one of the things that happens with imperialism and colonialism, they eventually start cannibalizing their own.
That's exactly what's happening
now.
It really does feel like that. And I hate living in this country now. And if I could, I would move away. But then where the hell do I go? Where it's like the world is like what it used to be 10 years ago, even when it was so much better. And it's just getting worse. Anyway, I'll let you read out some comments, Mark.
El Salvador, Russia.
Let me just
we
jump
have
in.
more freedoms.
I just want to explain my camera's not working, so it's probably a good thing for everybody watching, because you don't need to see my fat head, and it means I can puff on my puffo without anybody watching anyway, so it's all good. I just want to read a couple of messages out before we kind of wrap things up. With I want individual closing statements from you, if that's all right. Tim James says, you have courage in your convictions, Mark. I always try, Tim. That's what I'm, I always try and be on the right side of things. Neil Price says he's right about the Americans. It's straight from Project Paperclip. And Abu says we also need to stop legal mass immigration. Now, Richard, it's funny that you brought up, was it the Cloward Piven you said?
Cloward Piven strategy, yep.
Right. Cloward Piven, that was brought up in my trial last year. When obviously I got arrested and jailed for post on X. That was brought up in my trial, also alongside the Caligari plan. You heard of that?
Yep. The Caligari plan. Yes.
Anybody that's not au fait with the Cloward Piven and the Caligari plan, please go and have a look at it, because I didn't even know what they were talking about in on the trial, and I was like, "What the hell?" They go, "Do you know about this? Do you what can you tell us about the Caligari plan?" I'm like, "I don't know." Well, it's on your page, Mr. Heath. I was like, "Right, okay." And then obviously when I come back, I read about it. But this is exactly what Julia and Richard have just been talking about. So have a look, have a read of it, because it's basically. We're being changed basically. They want to change the ways of the country, etc., etc. And this is my closing statement.
They're not doing it because they care about Muslims. They're not doing it for that.
Oh, I know.
They're doing it so that they can tighten their hold on all of us.
Absolutely,
it's horrible, isn't it?
Absolutely. People need to go and have a read of that. So the Caligari plan and the Cloward Piven, just have a read of that if you haven't seen either of those things. I want to say a few things, and then I'll pass it over to Rich probably, and then to Julia to conclude. Now, my closing statement is this, that I think as a nation, as a Christian nation, we are sleepwalking into something that soon enough we're not going to be able to get out of. we're not going to be able to get out of. And that could be as soon as 4 years' time. Because let me tell you, Keir Starmer is absolutely shitting himself with the results of reform a couple of weeks ago. He is backtracking on every single thing that he's done. He's backtracking on immigration. He's backtracking maybe on the fuel allowance. He's backtracking on many things. He's gone, oh dear, we're in trouble here. But that is because the people are voting with it. Now, I feel as parents on this subject, parents need to speak out. My boy was being taught Islam in a Christian school, which I personally think is wrong. But he was the only child that was set aside, which I had an issue with. And I know that maybe other parents within that school felt the same as what I did, but they didn't have the conviction. They didn't have God in their hearts to say, I want my child not to be taught that rubbish. Or I don't want my child to be taught that daddy can have a baby because it's wrong. Yeah. And parents need to make a stand. They need to make a stand, and they need to make it now. And if you are a Christian, you don't have to be a Christian that will not say anything, that says that idly lays by, is placid and passive. Be a Christian with full of Judas line in your heart, and stand up, rise up, and say what you want to say. Do what you want to do. Tell people what's wrong, and tell people that what they're doing is wrong and right, etc., etc. Have a voice. Stand up. Be counted. Because let me tell you, if you sit idly by and do nothing now, you are going to regret it in a few years' time, because we're going to be too far gone. So my closing thing is this: if you've got a child in school and you don't want them learning that, just take them out and homeschool. I think I've got a child at the ideal age now, where he's got a year and a half left of his primary school. I can take him out for that year and a half, and I can teach him God. I can teach him love. I can teach him whatever I want to teach him. Yeah. And then I can make a decision about what I do with him when he goes to secondary school. And it might well be that I carry on homeschooling him. I'm going to have a better connection with my child, because all I see of my child at the minute is when he wakes me up in the morning, and when he gets home from school, when he jumps upstairs on his PlayStation. That is what I see of my child from Monday to Friday. And the weekend, he's up there. He wants to be on his PlayStation. So for me, I think it's going to be a good thing. I'm going to have a lot of interaction with my child. I'm going to be doing the learning. It's going to be good for me as well, because I just sit there all day watching bloody stupid crap on TV. I'm going to be doing my brain. And what I'm saying to you is this: if you're not happy with children going to mosques and having to pray in front of Allah, who you do not agree with, if you don't want your child learning that daddy can have a baby and you can identify the crayon, then stand up now, raise your voices, because if you don't, it is going to be too late. Rich.
Thank you, Mark. I would go a little bit further than you, but then I did. I didn't send my children to school. Well, they're 20 and 17 now, right? It's actually, one's going to be 21, the other one's going to be 18 in a few months' time. I didn't ever put them into school because I wanted them to have an education. And then 20 odd years ago, or 16 odd years ago, schools weren't as bad as they are now. I go into schools regularly as a child protection social worker. It doesn't matter whether, I would say, whether you're a Christian parent or not, or a Jewish parent, or a Muslim parent, or agnostic or atheist, get your kids out of school. They'll be much, much happier. Home education is a whole lot easier than people think. It's not doing school at home. Your son, Mark, will be much, much happier. Your bond with him will be much, much closer. And they'll be way more satisfied and fulfilled in life forever. School is not designed to educate. It's designed to indoctrinate and train in conformity, obedience, and compliance, which serves the needs of the ruling class that's out to destroy our lives in the UK currently. Get them out.
Well said, Richard.
Education Otherwise is a really great resource for those starting off. Education Otherwise. Okay. Julia.
My closing statement, I agree with you, Mark, but I'm going to say it slightly differently. I think, and I'm going to use Raja Mia's statement, I think we are tiptoeing to the Taliban rather than sleepwalking into it, because that could easily happen. Look at Lebanon. Why are we not rising up, and not, I don't mean violence. I just mean people should be saying, if they're not comfortable with something, say it as it is, because I could lose my job by saying some of the things that I say, because I feel I've got to say them. I've got no problem with trans people. I've got no problem with Muslims. But there's certain things about these people that I need to talk about. Because if I don't, I do not want to be on my deathbed with regrets that I didn't stand up and be counted. Fair enough, I'm taking a risk. But I feel I've got to, because I look around me and I think, why is nobody else saying anything? This is wrong. What's wrong with people? And I realise it's because they're frightened of being called racist, because we've had it drilled into us for years. Oh, you can't say that. You shouldn't say that. That's racist. So we've now taken it on board. We need to start standing up, because if we all stand up, their table crashes. That, you know.
Absolutely.
Oh, have we lost Mark? Right in the last minute.
Right in the last minute. I think we're still live, Julia.
Yes, we are.
It's not even about being called racist or something. You know, people should have pride in their own culture and in their own history. That I'm a Muslim doesn't diminish you, and that Mark's a Christian. I don't know if you're a Christian as well, Julia. It doesn't diminish me. And one thing, you know, when I was 18 years old, I joined the anti-apartheid movement because I was appalled by what was going on in South Africa. And now what I see is I'm want to stand shoulder to shoulder with white people in Britain and with Christian people in Britain, because they're of equal worth and value. Despite a difference in philosophy, we're all human, and we need to come together in order to destroy the ruling class who are out to destroy us.
Exactly, because if we don't start standing up, and I thought that, I was sick of keeping my mouth shut, and I was thinking, no, I don't agree with that, or I don't agree with this, and blah, blah, blah. And I would just sit there. It makes you angry, and it makes me more and more angry. And I don't want to blow off one day and do something stupid. Not that I'm saying I would, but what about when it comes to it? What am I going to do? I know that I won't sit there thinking, well, I should have done this, and I should have gone on the rallies. I should have done this and been counted and said this, when I do not want those regrets in my life. I can't live with myself if that's the case. I just can't, Rich.
Yes.
There's just I cannot do it, and I know what I'm like. But I don't want to see violence. But sadly, I think we're going to, because of the way that the government is handling this whole situation, the education, the health service, the police force. Look at the two-tier police force. Every single structure that we have is broken. Every single one of those, the social services, the health service, it's broken.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
We haven't got the infrastructure.
Julia, I agree with you. It is going to get much, much worse before it gets better. I don't.
And we're going to see violence, aren't we? We are going to see violence. That Professor David Betts, we're going to see a civil war.
Yeah,
I mean, dear God, in this country. Wow, not on my watch.
There's just something I want to say about home education that I forgot to mention, which is the Education and Welfare Bill, which is going through Parliament right now, which will make it virtually impossible for parents to home educate. And parents who refuse, certain conditions that the local authority says they have to follow could be imprisoned.
That's why they're making all the spaces, man, for the indigenous population to go. Literally, we are being ethnically cleansed. We literally are, and I don't want that to happen.
No.
And we're seen as bad because we're white. I'm not a bad person. I haven't had. I mean, have you seen the pictures of the kids going down the coal mines in the 1900s? That's not. Is that white privilege? I don't think so. What privilege was that?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to ethnically cleanse white people in as much as disappear them and have us fighting each other. That's what I think
exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah,
because what part of Islam's going to win? The strongest, the worst, I think, in the end.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't know what's happened to
I don't know
the.
where Mark's gone.
I don't know where Mark is. Just carry on.
We've turned little.
I saw something today across X about how the government is withdrawing certain tax benefits from churches, while at the same
Yeah.
time giving funding to mosques.
Yeah, I know.
That's just more divide and rule.
I've written that in this book. I've written about all of this. It's totally up to date, all my statistics. Please, please buy it and read it. The Crescent over Britain, How Islam's Rise Reshapes a Nation. J.T. Welford.
Guys,
It's
can
on
you hear me?
Amazon.
I'm having a lot of trouble. So we'll wrap all
Yes,
this up.
obviously.
Thanks for carrying that on while I've disappeared. I really do appreciate you both coming on. I'm sorry that you haven't had the opportunity to look at my lovely face this evening, guys, but it's probably a good thing. Thank you, Rich, for joining us. Thank you, Julia. If I can just chat with you both after the closing edits, if you don't mind. Everybody else out there, I really strongly think you should take something from today. Take something from this show. I will be taking action next week, and we need other people that are going to stand up and do something about what is happening in our country, because we are being things are happening that we shouldn't be letting happen. Let's put it that way. God bless you all. Have a lovely rest of the evening and a good week ahead.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
And thanks for the 1,000+ people that have watched. I appreciate it.